Doug Casey reveals the next 10 baggers speculation and gives you tips on how to find them. And at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you how Doug actually helped me find an almost 10 bagger. I'm going to explain this to you in 3 simple, fast steps. Step number 1, you need to buy cheap. But why is this? Why do we need to buy cheap? Well, to give you an example, we've got a chart of corn going all the way back to 1866 to 2010, but of course, we've got today's prices as well. This is adjusted for inflation. 1917, price of corn all the way up to $24. 1931 plummets down to $4.35. 1944 all the way up back to $22, $21.76. 1971, $13.78. 1986, $3. In 2004, all the way down to $2.30. So you may be asking yourself, well, where are we today? We're right around $3.80. So historically speaking, that is incredibly cheap. But it goes back to the old saying, the cure for high prices is high prices, and the cure for low prices is low prices. So just let's go over that quickly. We've got 3 farmers, Farmer Fred, Farmer Tom, Farmer Bob, and they're right here in the good old US of A, and they grow corn. Well, if prices go all the way up to $24.41, more farmers could start to grow corn. Let's say we've got a soybean farmer, and his name is Farmer, we'll call him Farmer Steve. And Farmer Steve, for some reason, has a hat with a dollar sign. I'm not quite sure why I did that. That's supposed to be an S. But Farmer Steve grows soybeans. He sees his prices. Holy cow! Corn is at $24. I'm going to start growing corn as well. So he comes into the mix. That creates more supply. That puts downward pressure on price. And of course, the cure for low prices is low prices. So it just works in reverse order. If corn goes down to $4.35 or $2.30, then all these farmers can't make money. So Farmer Steve is out. He goes back to growing soybeans. Farmer Bob says, forget this. I can't deal with not making any money. I've got kids to feed. He's out. Farmer Tom, he says, this is a horrible business. I'm never doing this again. I never should have become a farmer in the first place. Now we're only left with Farmer Fred. So the supply has gone down so far that sooner or later prices have to go back up. So Janet Yellen is back with her hammering. I can't believe it. That's an inside joke. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, check out the pinned comments below and I'll explain it to you. But we're going to power right through with the help of my amazing editors. So we know that the cure for low prices, all the farmers are out of business, no more supply, prices go up. But that's not the end of the story. And what most people don't think about is it's all about the marketplace as well. As an example of this, we have 2 markets. Market number 1, we've got a lot of buyers, very few sellers. Market number 2, we've got no buyers and all sellers. Each of these markets only have 10 participants. Market number 1 is very much like the stock market is today, where the only seller that you have is this one guy, and of course he is wearing his tinfoil hat because he watches the George Gammon YouTube channel. But all the other participants are on the buy side. They think the market is going to the moon. Well, we contrast that with a market like Cyprus. And there's a reason we're using that. You'll see later on in the video. But editor, go ahead and throw up a chart of Cyprus. And you'll see back in 2013-14 that the market went from almost 5,000, or actually a little above 5,000, all the way down to 60. It lost 98% of its value. In that type of market, all the sellers have sold. There are no more sellers left. So how much downside do you have in a market where there are no more sellers? And how much downside do you have in a market where there are no more buyers? That is the key. So the best way to find that 10 bagger is to look for something that's selling under the cost of production and or a market where there are just no more sellers. To hear what Doug Casey himself thinks is the next 10-bagger, let's go to a clip of my full-length interview with Doug that will be uploaded to the channel tomorrow morning.
So what do we do to protect ourselves, to profit from this, if it's possible? Well, to start with, stay away from stuff that's demonstrably expensive. Buy stuff that's cheap. In fact, let me say this. The cheapest thing in the world now, basically, is commodities.
Right.
They're the only thing that's cheap. And I'm talking about the grains, the meats, the metals. All the commodities are very cheap right now. And since they're the actual building blocks of civilization, everything that we have and use, it's all built out of materials that are mined or grown or whatever. And most of them are actually selling below the cost of production. There are very few standalone silver mines that are making money today at $18 silver. Gold miners are basically all making money at $1,500 gold. Gold is a different metal than silver, like I said before. So yeah, I think silver is a very good speculation right now. And there aren't many silver miners, but the few that there are, yeah, I think they're high potential. When a bull market strikes, as a group, they can go up 10 to 1. Individual stocks can go up 100 to 1, easy. Sometimes 1,000 to 1.
Doug thinks the next 10-baggers are going to be commodities and the miners, specifically the silver miners. But we really need to understand why Doug's strategy works over the long term. And to do that, let's go to step number 2. To understand why Doug's strategy works long term, we have to analyze the downside of the 10-bagger. And that's right, there is a downside. Remember, going back to Wednesday's video, we want to try to achieve a 95% plus chance that we make money over the long term with our investment or speculation strategy. To do that, there's 3 buckets or 3 metrics we have to focus on. Number 1, probabilities, and that's our edge. Number 2, asymmetry. That's the upside and the downside to the investment or speculation. Number 3 is volume, and that goes back to the law of large numbers in that binomial calculator. Even if you get a combination of these things correct, you still have to have good money management, and that goes back to the Kelly criterion that we talked about in Wednesday's video. We'll put a link in the description below. So we obviously have Doug Casey here because he's holding a bag of money and a very nice anarchy sign. And forewarned to any of those people who agree to an interview with George Gavin, you got to realize you'll most likely show up as a stick figure on one of my videos. But the problem, or the downside, with Doug's strategy in trying to find these 10-baggers is that there's very low volume. You can't find many things to invest in that have the chances of increasing 10x. Also, there's low probability. You're only going to get that right maybe 30% of the time. So the solution that Doug has come up with is to try to find these speculations that have extreme asymmetry. And to understand why this combination actually works over the long term, let's go back to the binomial calculator that we used in Wednesday's video. If we have a 30% probability of our investment working out, and there's a 10x return if it does, and assuming we lose everything if it doesn't, and if we make that speculation, or a similar speculation with similar numbers, 10 times, the binomial calculator tells us that there's only a 3% chance that none of our 10 investments work out. So there's a 97% chance that at least one of those investments does work out. So let's do the math. If we have 9 losers and we're betting $10 per speculation, then we've lost $90. But if we have 1 winner and that winner goes up 10x at $10, that's a $100 gain. In total, we'll be ahead by a minimum of $10 if we execute this strategy with these metrics over the long term. But let's adjust the binomial calculator and you'll see how important the probabilities, asymmetry, and volume actually are. Let's put in a 20% chance of getting a winner. Now we've got a 10% chance that we actually have 0 speculations work out. That takes us under that 95% probability long term. Therefore, a strategy with these metrics would not work out over the long term. But it's not just the probability that you have to get right. Let's take that 10x number down to a 5x number. Most people, if you said, well, would you take a 5-bagger? They'd say, well, absolutely, of course, I'll take that bet all day long. But what they don't realize is that over the long run, that could be a losing trade or a losing speculation. Let's go back to the binomial calculator. The probability, 30%, the volume is 10 attempts at a 5-bagger. There, if 9 of our speculations go to 0, we've lost $90, assuming that we're speculating $10 each time. If we get 1 to hit, that gives us a $50 winner. That still gives us a loss of $40 total. So these metrics over the long term would not work out. But to show you how important each one of these metrics are, remember that if we just adjust the volume on one of these strategies that don't work, call it the second one or the third one, if that volume increases to 100 attempts, then you're going to be at a 99% probability of winning over the long term. So it just goes to show you how you've got to pay very close attention to each one of these metrics. That's probabilities, asymmetry, and volume. Step number 3, the 10-bagger Doug helped me find, and how understanding this will help you make more money. The almost 10-bagger Doug helped me find. Back in 2012, the Cyprus market completely crashed because of the bail-in. I have a chart here going back to 2006, and this is a chart of the Lourdes hotel chain in Cyprus. They are a publicly traded company. This goes from 25 cents or 25, is that what they call euros? Anyway, 25 cents in euros up to 75 cents in euros. And in 2006, it was at its peak right around 75 cents, comes crashing all the way down to its low at 10 cents. Keep in mind, at 10 cents, it was still paying a dividend yield of 1 penny. Now, although that might not sound like a lot, that was 10% dividend yield. Try to find that on the S&P today. But unfortunately, I didn't get in at 10 cents a share. I didn't know about it then. So I was kind of in this zone. We'll call it 14 cents a share. So I went in there and bought on Doug's advice. I was reading International Man at the time, and Doug had an article come out where he went to Cyprus, did all this research, and I thought this was a great idea. So I did my own homework as well. I didn't completely rely on what Doug was saying, but I decided that I wanted to buy this Lourdes hotel chain. Why? Because real estate is something that I understand. So when I was looking at its balance sheet, I actually understood what it did compared to a bank or a pharmaceutical or maybe some tech company. So we bought in here, we were making a 7% dividend yield, and actually I completely forgot about this. I remember that I had the investment, but it's only a few $1,000s, so I don't pay that much attention to it. But I researched it last night for the sake of this video. Sure enough, Lourdes hotel chain has now gone up to 88 cents a share. Now, it's not a 10-bagger, I know, but we've got to factor in the dividend. I also noticed back in 2018-19 that the Lourdes hotel chain increased their dividend to 3 cents a share. That's a 21% dividend yield. So although I didn't get the 10-bagger, you got to cut me a little slack there because I'm getting a 20% dividend. And for those of you saying if you would have bought Tesla at $80 a share, you still would have had a 10-bagger, George. And you may be right. But my rebuttal to that would be, are you getting a 21% yield with Tesla? I don't think so. So this is crisis investing. This is finding things when they're super, super cheap with that asymmetry that we talked about in step number 2. How can this help you make more money in the future? You might not be able to set up a brokerage account in Cyprus, but you definitely can invest in the United States. And let's remember, going back to the great financial crisis, the price of Coca-Cola went down to $20 a share. And if you look at their current dividend yield, that would be an 8% dividend yield that you would be making right now off of that investment. And editor, throw up a chart of their dividend. You can see it goes up and up and up every single year. I have traveled to over 40 countries, and one thing they all have in common is every single person there is drinking Coca-Cola. This is an example of crisis investing right here in the United States. You're buying things when they're incredibly cheap. You're being paid to own them, and there's tremendous asymmetry. The same asymmetry that Doug Casey looks for when he's trying to find his next 10-bagger. For those of you who would like to get these videos emailed directly to your inbox with exclusive commentary from me that you will not find on YouTube, go to georgegammon.com and go ahead and subscribe to our email list right now. We'll put a link to the website right here, and I will see you on the next video.